Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Tiffany, and this is Miss Kim, and we will be your teachers. Today, we will learn more about Asia and India in a very important river called the Indus River.
Today's lesson is titled The Indus River Valley, Part 2. In this lesson, we will learn what life was like for a child living in Mohenjo-Daro, a civilization in the Indus River Valley.
By the end of today's lesson, we will be able to identify Asia as the largest continent with the most populous countries in the world. Then we will locate Asia and India on a map or globe. Also, we will be able to explain the importance of mountains in the development of early civilizations. Next, we will be able to explain the importance of the Indus River for the development of civilizations in ancient times. And lastly, we will describe the key components of a civilization. This is going to be interesting. Let's get started.
In our previous lessons, we learned about the ancient civilizations that began in India and China. We will use the same map from that lesson to help us as we learn about ancient India. Miss Tiffany, will you help us review by answering some questions to see what we remember?
Sure, I would love to.
Great.
I will use this map of India to help us out.
Wonderful. All right, so we're going to begin with, which mountain did you learn about in the previous lesson?
Was it the Himalayas?
Awesome job. It was the Himalayan mountains. On which continent are these mountains found?
Is it Asia?
Awesome job. Can you remember what makes Asia so special?
I can. I believe it was the largest continent in the world, and I think it has two of the most populous countries.
Very good. Can you recall which river you learned about in the previous lesson?
I can. I think it was the Indus River.
Awesome job. Now, let's see what happened to this Indus River when the heavy spring rains came and snow melted from the peaks of the Himalayas. Do you remember?
I sure do. It flooded and left behind fertile soil.
You are correct. But one of the most important things we learned was that how the people took advantage of this rich soil near the river. So can you tell us how they used the soil?
They began to cultivate crops like wheat and barley, dates, bananas, and more.
But how did the people control the floodwaters?
They built irrigation canals to control the floodwaters.
That's right. Our final review question is, how do we know that there was a civilization in the Indus River Valley?
We know that there was a civilization in the Indus River Valley because archaeologists uncovered cities like Mohenjo-Daro with large buildings, with evidence of a government, special jobs, and some forms of writing.
Awesome job. Great review. Before we begin today's Read Aloud, let's go over some vocabulary words. Our first word is bustling. Repeat after me. Bustling.
Bustling.
Bustling means full of activity, moving busily or energetically. Let's use it in a sentence.
The bustling carnival was filled with people riding huge rides and having lots of fun.
So is that like people when they go in the store at Christmas and they're bustling around buying gifts?
That's right.
Our next word is nestles. Repeat after me. Nestles.
Nestles.
Nestles means to snuggle or settle in comfortably. Let's use it in a sentence.
Kent's new kittens nestles next to the mother when taking naps.
Our next word is recede. Repeat after me. Recede.
Recede.
Recede means to draw back or move away from a certain point. Let's use it in a sentence.
Jude watched the water recede from the beach and leave behind beautiful seashells.
I love to sit on the beach and watch the waves come in and then recede.
Me too. It is just so relaxing.
So our last vocabulary word is source. Repeat after me, source.
Source.
Source is the start or the cause of something. Let's use it in a sentence.
The sun is the source of light and heat for planet Earth. In today's Read Aloud, listen closely as we travel back in time to meet a child living in Mohenjo-Daro 2,500 years ago. The child's father is a grain trader. Wheat from the surrounding fields is stored in a common granary near the citadel, which is a safe place in the center of the city. The father's job is to collect the grain and take it through the city gates to the bustling ports by the river. There, he will trade it for gold, copper, jade, and turquoise from distant lands.
Take a look at this next picture. Meet Sanjay, the boy in this picture who is waiting excitedly for his father in the courtyard of his family home. It is a special day. Sanjay has waited 9 years for his father's invitation to join him today. Sanjay can hear the bull cart rattling down the side passage now. Then he sees him. The man in the turban in this picture is Sanjay's father. The turban he wears is a headdress made of cloth and worn by men in the region. Hop in, son. Let's go.
Sanjay nestles into the back of the wooden cart, bracing himself against its sides, as his father guides the bull out onto the main street. He has bathed and put on fresh cotton clothes, for father has promised that after the morning's work, he will be able and allowed to join the special ceremony, giving thanks to the mighty Indus River and all she provides.
Is this the special invitation that Sanjay's been waiting for 9 years?
I think so. Let's keep reading and find out. As the cart jostles Sanjay about with each turn in the road, his thoughts travel back to last spring when steady rains flooded the river, forcefully breaking through the city walls and toppling buildings in its wake.
Sanjay remembers it as if it were yesterday. The awful smell of wet mud that filled his home as he and his sister waded knee-deep in muck, waiting for the muddy waters to recede. Sanjay knows from experience that the river has the power to destroy things in its path, and yet he knows too that the river is the source of life in the valley. Without it, there would be no crops for food, no cotton for clothing, and no means of easily transporting goods over long distances.
Sanjay's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden jolt of the cart as it takes place and is placed behind other traders, lined up in front of the city granary. Enormous terracotta, large clay pots, filled with grain are hoisted into the cart and set down beside him.
Miss Tiffany, what is terracotta?
Terracotta is a brownish-orange clay used by ancient civilizations to make pottery. Sanjay wonders how the wooden wheels beneath him can carry so much weight. Turning to face forward in the cart, Sanjay sits on his knees, straining to see over the approaching city gates to the sailing ships beyond. As the cart sways to and fro from the weight of the pots, Sanjay's father struggles to edge his way through the throng and crowd of bull carts, all heading towards the loud and lively sounds of the harbor.
Look at this picture. What do you see in this picture?
I see a little boy with someone that I think might be his dad, and it looks like they're on some sort of beach.
Well, what do you think is happening?
It looks like his father is trying to buy something.
Well, that's a great prediction. Once there, father exchanges his grain for copper from Mesopotamia, hoping to sell it to the jewelry makers for a good price. The sun is directly overhead now, midday. As father steers the bulls away from the bustling port and comes to stand still beneath the shade of a willow tree, Sanjay's heart skips a beat. Stepping down and leaning into his father's side, Sanjay walks with him toward a grove of banyan trees. Gathered among cows and men, Sanjay's eye is drawn to the man seated on the bare ground in a cross-legged position, head bent in silence. Bowing his head, Sanjay listened to the words that comfort his people for many years. O great river, mother of the people, provider of life, we thank you. It is now 6 moon cycles since your banks last flooded. We hope that you are pleased. Your waters give us life. To you we owe our lives. Accept our blessings, great river. A squeeze from Father's hand lets Sanjay know that he is proud to bring his son to this spot for the first time. Sanjay squeezes his hand back, letting him know that he is thankful too, and whispers his thanks for this day.
What river do you think he was referring to?
The Indus River. That's what we've been studying, so I'm assuming he's referring to that.
That's right, the Indus River. Wasn't that a great story?
Yes, and a great way to learn about life as a child in ancient civilization of Mohenjo-Daro, located along the Indus River Valley. Now that we've completed the read aloud, it's time to see what we remember. We'll use our anchor chart with our questions here. Try to answer my questions in complete sentences. Miss Tiffany, can you help us with this?
Sure, I would love to.
Great. All right, the first question is, near which important river is Sanjay's city located?
I remember that Sanjay's city is located near the Indus River.
Awesome answer. Question 2. In which area is the Indus River found?
The Indus River is located in ancient India.
Great answer. Did you know, Miss Tiffany, that the countries of Pakistan and India are both part of what we call ancient India?
No, but that was great information.
Question 3. Think really hard about this one. Based on what we've learned in this lesson and lesson 1, can you tell me why the Indus River is so important?
I think the Indus River is so important because it floods and leaves fertile soil on surrounding land, which makes it easier to grow crops.
Great listening skills. That was a fabulous answer, Miss Tiffany. Now, we know that the Indus River is a very important river. However, it can be harmful as well as helpful. So I have a real tricky question for you.
Okay.
Can you list 2 ways that the mighty Indus River is helpful and 2 ways that it is harmful to the people of Mohenjo-Daro? Start with the helpful.
I think I remember that. 2 ways that the Indus River is helpful is 1, the Mohenjo-Daro people water for crops, and it helped them to move goods over long distances.
Great job. You really listened to the read aloud. Now, how is the Indus River harmful?
Okay. I believe that the Indus River is harmful because it can destroy things in its path.
And also, it floods houses as it goes through as well. That was a great answer. Now it is time to review a very important word that we have been reading in our story.
In the read aloud, we heard that the river is the source of life in the valley.
That's right. The special word is source. Can you say the word source with us?
Source.
A source is the start or cause of something. It is the place from which something occurs. Let's use it in a sentence.
Jude's flashlight was the only source of light when the power went out.
Can you name another source for light, heat, food, or water? Try to use the word source when you name a source.
The source of light is the sun.
Great job. What is the word that we've been talking about?
Source. The word we have been talking about is source.
That's right, source. What part of speech is the word source?
I think it's a noun.
Good job.
As we review what we learned in the last 2 lessons, we will use this chart to review some of the important components of early civilization in India. We will use these picture cards to fill in the empty columns in rows to match to the Indian civilization.
This is a photograph of dates, a crop in the Indus River Valley. Miss Tiffany, can you share what you remember from the Read-Aloud about farming in the Indus River Valley?
Sure. I learned that Sanjay's father grows grain.
That's right, and they also grew dates. You can place that here under farming. Miss Tiffany's placing the picture of the dates in the chart in the early Indian civilization row under the farming column to help us remember that farming occurred in early Indian civilization. This is a photograph of the city of Mohenjo-Daro. Miss Tiffany, can you share with us one thing you remember that you learned in the Read-Aloud about Mohenjo-Daro?
Well, the Mohenjo-Daro was a very city with lots of training.
That's right. Miss Tiffany will place the picture of Mohenjo-Daro in the city's columns to remind us that there were cities in ancient and early India. Finally, Miss Tiffany, this is an image that shows early writing in the Indus River Valley civilization. Can you share with us one thing that you remember from the Read-Aloud about writing in ancient India?
Yes, this was one of the first forms of writing. The Mesopotamian civilization called their system of writing cuneiform.
Excellent. Miss Tiffany is placing the image card on the chart in the writing column to remind us that there was writing used in the Indus River Valley civilization. Well, guess what, guys? That about wraps it up. But before we go, we want to share something with you, an activity that will help you remember what you've learned today. You will retell the Read-Aloud using the words first, next, and last. So I want you to look closely at this first picture. This is a picture of Sanjay waiting for his father. What is he waiting excitedly for? Next, this is a picture of Sanjay traveling with his father to a very special event. What event is Sanjay and his father attending? And last, this is a picture of Sanjay, and he is holding hands with his father while attending a very special event. Sanjay's father feels very proud to bring his son to this very special spot for the very first time. What does Sanjay's father do to let him know how proud he is to have him there? Use these pictures to help you remember what took place in the story. Draw your own pictures and write a sentence to help you retell today's Read-Aloud. Then make sure to share it with someone at home.
All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials. The views and opinions expressed in this lesson are those of Core Knowledge authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Mississippi Department of Education.
Thank you for coming. We'll see you next time.
Bye.